it broke my spirit. It broke my spirit. And it just never ends. It just never ends. So I had to end it. And
what you've just witnessed is a confession of what occurs when people perform family and invest their time in trauma bonding over their trumped up dislike of Meghan Sussex. You see, the faux connection will always crumble when it's based on the collective feelings of inferiority, anger, jealousy, rage, and envy towards Meghan. They were, in fact, never a family, only a group of grifters pretending to be one. Stay woke.
Hello friends, let's have another chat about Her Royal Highness Princess Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, because one of the biggest criticisms against her is that she has got no contact with her father's side of the family, and that includes her father, her elder sister, and her elder brother. And just for context, her elder sister and brother are over 19 years older than Meghan. So there was already an age gap that limited the kind of closeness they could have. Additionally, these are her half siblings, so they share a father but they do not share a mother. Additionally, Meghan is of our persuasion partly, even though people claim they cannot see it, but her siblings are fully of the Caucasian persuasion, which shouldn't have limited the kind of relationship they went on to have, but we live in a society, and this fact did go on to impact how these people perceive Meghan and her place in their lives. Because shortly after the world found out that Princess Diana's youngest child was dating a woman of our persuasion, partly, Princess Meghan's sister went on to talk to a whole bunch of tabloids in an effort to give intimate details that nobody else could provide. This continued up until Meghan's wedding to Prince Harry, at which point Meghan's sister convinced their father to talk to the tabloids and to pose for pictures and to sell certain kinds of stories to these tabloids. So just to sample a few of these wild fantasies that Meghan's sister has been selling to the tabloids to this day, is that Meghan was not raised by her mother, and in fact her mother was addicted to substances and spent time in prison, and Meghan was therefore raised by the sister that she did not even have a relationship with. But going back to Meghan's father, what he did was that he was trying to sell the idea that Meghan came from like this really downtrodden side of the world where she didn't really even have any kind of sophistication, and marrying Harry was the thing that was her meal ticket. And I know that's not going to seem like a big deal to a lot of people, but here's the thing you need to understand about the British tabloid press. These are the same people who did the shit that they did to our beloved Princess Diana. Like, this is the same group of people who stirred up such a media frenzy around this poor woman that she could not effectively live as a neutral, safe person in the world. And when she was away on a vacation in France, the tabloids there, because they knew there was a demand for her pictures, for where she was, for what she wore, for who she was with, for what she did, like they knew there was a demand to consume Princess Diana as a commodity. And so what did they do? They felt obligated to chase her into a tunnel, and then she sadly passed away. And currently, these are the same group of people who are telling us, nah, Di wouldn't have died if her driver wasn't drunk. That's a new line of propaganda that we've been getting fed ever since her passing. And to bring it back to Princess Meghan's father, this is the same group of people that he was willing to collaborate with in order to sell stories about his daughter, because that's the key thing you need to understand about Meghan's father, is that he was getting paid to do all of this. And here's the thing with this entire arrangement. It can be easy to think, oh, maybe he was just naive. Maybe he didn't know. Maybe he genuinely thought this would help his daughter maybe up her profile a little bit, make her a little bit more relatable to the general public, and so forth and so forth. But here's the other thing you need to understand about the British tabloid press, especially when it comes to their relationship with Princess Meghan. And the reason that I cited Princess Diana early on wasn't just because, I was feeling facetious today. No. It's because their relationship with Meghan and how they covered Meghan was already starting to resemble how they had covered Princess Diana. There are literally countless articles, podcasts, interviews, daily panels, news snippets, etc. that I could cite to you to demonstrate just how and why they did this. You've probably seen some of them yourself, even if you're not a regular on this channel. This is the most over-documented woman of our time. I say that without hyperbole. But for the purposes of this video, I just want to focus on this particular article that was published in 2017, in which we find out rather helpfully how long it took Meghan's family to move upward from slavery all the way to the upper echelons of society. And in this case, of course, that upper echelon is the so-called royal family of Great Britain. And here's the thing about this graphic, right? It's telling us that Meghan was descended from cotton slaves, which, you could say it's accurate. Why are you making such a hoopla about it? Well, I am glad you asked, because this is not an informational piece of reporting. This is a warning, and it's not just a warning for everybody. It's a warning specifically aimed and targeted at people of the Caucasian persuasion. They are literally telling you, this is what these niggas can do in 150 years or less. They can go from picking cotton in the fields to marrying into the upper echelons. Because here's a really cute little detail that they add at the very end, is that on her father's side, the Caucasian side of the family, Meghan is descended from people who have previously worked at Windsor Castle. So people who had access to the upper echelon. And so they're not just warning people who are in the upper echelons. They're warning the rest of y'all who also have access to these places, who also have access to these people. They're telling you, these niggas, they will marry into your family, and before you know it, they have mulattofied your family, and those mulattoes would then go on to marry into the higher places. From the very beginning, we were meant to understand that Meghan's mother's side of the family is where all the unsophisticatedness is happening, is where all the trash happens, it's where all the things that you want to hype about your life happen. But her father's side of the family, well, that's where we're going to find all the good and pure things about the world, all the sunshines and rainbows, or whatever else the Daily Mail wants you to believe. But here's the thing. All of the drama that goes on in Meghan's life, all of the negativity that has to do with her family is always and exclusively coming from her father's side of the family, which, just to remind you, are the Caucasian, strictly Caucasian side. But that's not how the story is supposed to go. The people who look like me are the ones who are supposed to be causing the drama. And so the fact that Meghan has now cut off the pure side is niggling a lot of people. It's niggling the media. It's niggling the people who look like Meghan's family. And here's where all this racial stuff I've just been throwing into the video becomes relevant. Like I said at the beginning of the video, one of the biggest criticisms against her is that she has cut off her father. And the reason that people care about this is because they see Meghan as being ungrateful. And the reason they see her as being ungrateful is because he is the parent that provided her with the license to be able to enter into the so-called British royal family. I.e., if Meghan wasn't partly Caucasian, Prince Harry wouldn't have even looked at her twice. And this is a sentiment that is repeated time and time again, because people genuinely believe that the only reason Prince Harry fell in love with and married Meghan and had children with her is because her dad was Caucasian. And I'm not saying all of these white dudes are just going around falling in love with black ladies, because that's the thing, right? People are going to be like, well, y'all just want to be in like swell relationships so bad. No, that's not what's happening. What is happening is that people genuinely cannot fathom the idea of a gorgeous black lady. And even if she isn't gorgeous, because that's the other thing, right? People can fall in love even when they're ugly. But people do not understand this idea that the younger child of Princess Diana somehow fell in love with a woman whose mother has dreadlocks. But coming back to the father, there are many more reasons that people hate Meghan for cutting off a genuinely toxic parent, chief among which is the racial aspect I've just outlined to you. And we will get into all of them in time. For now, I just want to come back to what went on earlier this week, which inspired this video. Because it turns out that Meghan's elder brother, who is a piece of trash person, who along with the sister and the father have been making Meghan's life a living hell. Like, they've been collaborating with the tabloids. They've been feeding the tabloids. This man has been trashing his sister, calling her everything but a child of God. He is threatening to write a book to expose just what a trash person she is, and just how Harry should get away from her if he wants to be saved or whatever. Like, he has called his own sister names that I wouldn't even call my worst enemy. And this man that I've just described to you, Meghan's brother, is currently crashing out on the internet because he's telling us that his father is a narcissist, and he's just done with his father because his father is exhausting. And you know what I'm finding funny? Yes, I'm laughing at him. And what I'm also finding funny is that people in the comment section of this man's crash out are telling him, hey babe, do you mind not having this crash out publicly, because it's going to give your sister license to keep on just being terrible to your father. So people are actively advising yet another one of Meghan's father's children to not contact with him in case it gives Meghan validation.
Alright, squaddies, let's talk about something that completely flips the script. For years, we heard one version of this story. Meghan is cold, she's heartless, she abandoned her dad. That was the headline, that was the narrative. Day after day, year after year. But now, the plot has taken a turn nobody saw coming. Thomas Markle Jr. has reportedly reached his own breaking point with Thomas Markle Sr. Now hold on a second, doesn't that sound familiar? Because that's exactly where Meghan found herself years ago, and that's why this is such a big deal. When one person tells you there's a problem, people might argue, people pick sides, people say, well, that's just their opinion. But when another family member starts describing the same kind of behavior and ends up making a similar decision, people start paying attention. That's no longer just one person's experience, that's a pattern. You know what this reminds me of? That one friend who keeps warning everybody about a restaurant. The food is terrible, the service is worse. Nobody believes them. Then 6 months later, everybody else eats there, and suddenly they're leaving the exact same review. Now everybody's saying, you know what, they were right. That's what this feels like. For years, Meghan was treated like she made all this up, like she woke up one morning and thought, let me distance myself from my family just for fun. Who does that? Seriously. Walking away from family isn't easy. Nobody celebrates making that kind of decision. People usually try everything before they get to that point. That's what regular people understand. Sometimes loving someone doesn't mean you can live with the chaos they bring into your life. Sometimes protecting your peace comes with a painful price, and that's real life. Here's what stands out to me. Thomas Jr. wasn't defending Meghan all these years. In fact, there were times when he criticized her publicly. That's why this moment catches people's attention. Because this isn't someone simply repeating Meghan's words. According to the reports, he's describing his own experience. He lived it. He reached his own conclusion. And somehow that conclusion sounds awfully familiar. Funny how life works. The truth has a habit of taking this scenic route. It doesn't always show up on your schedule. Sometimes it takes years. Sometimes it takes another person living through the same thing before people finally stop and say, maybe we judged that situation too quickly. That's why so many people are looking back at Meghan's story differently. Not because she suddenly changed, but because more pieces of the puzzle keep falling into place. At the end of the day, truth is, Meghan was judged far more harshly than she deserved. Because when different people keep arriving at the same destination without traveling together, maybe it's time to stop dismissing the map. Maybe Meghan wasn't running away from her family. Maybe she was running toward a little bit of peace. And judging by everything that's coming out now, a whole lot more people are beginning to understand exactly why. Alright, squaddies, can we talk about one of the biggest media fumbles in this whole Meghan story? Because for years, they sold the public one version. Meghan is the villain. That was the product. That was the headline. That was the moneymaker. Every time she set a boundary, she's cold. Every time she stepped back, she's ungrateful. Every time she chose peace, she's tearing the family apart. You'd think they had a copy and paste button sitting in the newsroom. Same story, different day. But here's the problem with building your entire narrative around one person being the bad guy. Eventually, reality turns up with receipts. And when that happens, the whole house of cards starts wobbling. Now, according to these reports, Thomas Markle Jr. has also chosen to distance himself from Thomas Markle Sr. Well, that changes the conversation, doesn't it? Because suddenly this isn't just Meghan saying, "I needed space." Now, another member of the same family is reportedly making a similar choice. That's when people start scratching their heads. Hold on, maybe there was more to this story than the tabloids wanted us to believe. Here's what always bothered me. Did anyone ever stop and ask, what if Meghan had a reason? Not fantasy, not a conspiracy, just a reason. Instead, the media jumps straight to the conclusion that she must be the problem. Case closed, next headline. That's easy journalism. Real life isn't that simple. Families are messy. People carry pain you can't see. And sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is step away from a situation that's draining you. Regular people understand that. You don't have to be rich. You don't have to be royal. You just have to be human. We've all seen that relative who leaves everybody exhausted. The one who somehow turns every family gathering into an argument. The one who never admits they're wrong. Most families have at least one. So when people hear another family member describing similar struggles, they're naturally going to look back and wonder if Meghan was judged too quickly. And here's where the tabloids have a problem. For years, they treated Meghan's side of the story like it didn't matter. Her perspective was pushed aside while everyone else got the microphone. Now the picture doesn't look as neat as it once did. The story they sold with so much confidence suddenly has cracks running through it. And that's the thing about the truth. You can ignore it for a while, you can talk over it, you can bury it under dramatic headlines, but sooner or later it has a habit of finding its way back into the conversation. That's why this moment matters. Not because it rewrites history overnight, but because it reminds people that there are always two sides to a story. Meghan wasn't the one creating all the drama. The media didn't just get the story wrong. They spent years convincing millions of people to cheer for the wrong version of it.
Now here's the part that's got me raising an eyebrow. Where did everybody go? Seriously? For years, every time Meghan made a decision about her family, it was breaking news, front pages, TV debates, endless opinion pieces, royal experts, body language experts, people who suddenly became family therapists because Meghan made a choice they didn't like. You couldn't escape it. It was everywhere. But now, according to the reports, Thomas Markle Jr. has reportedly reached a similar decision about Thomas Markle Sr. And it's like somebody hit the mute button. Poof! Silence. No marathon TV panels, no dramatic newspaper countdown, no endless lectures about family values. Nothing. Now that's interesting, because if Meghan was dragged for making that choice, shouldn't this be getting the exact same attention? That's a fair question. Here's what makes me laugh. The same people who acted like Meghan's decision was the biggest scandal of the century suddenly have nothing to say. Not even a little comment. Not even a quick opinion. They've gone quieter than a phone on airplane mode. Come on now, you can't spend years telling us this issue is the most important story in Britain, then disappear the moment someone else in the same family reportedly reaches a similar conclusion. That's not consistency, that's picking and choosing. And regular people notice stuff like that. You don't need to be a royal watcher, you don't need a journalism degree, you just need common sense. If the rules change depending on who's involved, people are going to ask why. Because here's the thing, silence can tell its own story. Sometimes what people refuse to talk about says just as much as the stories they shout from the rooftops. That's why this moment feels different. It's making people look back and ask a simple question. Was Meghan ever given the benefit of the doubt? Or had the verdict already been written before she even had a chance to explain herself? That's a conversation worth having. And let's be honest, if the headlines only appear when they make Meghan look bad, but disappear when new developments don't fit the old storyline, people are going to notice the pattern. You can't spend years presenting one version of events and then suddenly lose interest when fresh information makes that version harder to defend. The audience isn't blind. They remember, they compare, and they're perfectly capable of asking their own questions. At the end of the day, this isn't just about one family. It's about fairness. If you're going to hold one person under a microscope, then keep that same energy when the story changes. Otherwise, don't be surprised when people stop trusting the people writing the headlines. Because credibility isn't lost in one big moment. It's lost one double standard at a time.
And this, Squaddies, is where the story gets bigger than Meghan. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about royals. It's about life. It's about something millions of ordinary people deal with every single day. Family. Now, we've all heard that saying, but they're family. As if sharing the same last name magically fixes everything. It doesn't. Sometimes the people who are supposed to bring you peace are the very people stealing it. That's the hard truth. And plenty of people watching this know exactly what I'm talking about. Maybe it's a parent. Maybe it's a sibling. Maybe it's an uncle who turns every family gathering into World War III. You love them, but you leave every conversation feeling drained. That's real life. For years, Meghan was made to look like the bad guy simply because she said enough. She drew a boundary, and somehow the media acted like setting a boundary was the greatest crime ever committed. Really? Since when did protecting your mental health become controversial? Here's the thing. Walking away doesn't always mean you stopped loving someone. Sometimes it means you've stopped allowing the chaos to control your life. There's a massive difference. People confuse distance with hate. They're not the same. Sometimes distance is the only way to breathe again. And now, according to the reports, Thomas Markle Jr. has reportedly reached a similar place with his father. That doesn't automatically erase everything that's happened, but it does make people stop and think. Maybe Meghan wasn't being cruel after all. Maybe she simply reached her limit long before everyone else did, because everybody has a breaking point. Everybody. Even the strongest people get tired. You can only keep carrying emotional baggage for so long before your back gives out. Here's what regular people understand better than anyone. Peace is expensive. Sometimes it costs relationships. Sometimes it costs misunderstandings. Sometimes people will call you selfish simply because you refuse to keep suffering for their comfort. But protecting your peace isn't selfish. It's survival. Nobody should have to apologize for choosing a healthier life. Nobody. And that's why this conversation resonates with so many people. Not because Meghan is a duchess, not because she's famous, but because people see a situation they've lived themselves. The details may be different. The family names may be different, but the feeling, that's universal. Sometimes you don't walk away because you stopped caring. You walk away because you've spent years caring and nothing changes. That's a painful decision, not an easy one. Time has a funny way of revealing things. The headlines come and go. The opinions fade. But eventually, people's actions start telling a bigger story than anyone's commentary ever could. That's what we're seeing now. The picture is becoming clearer. And with every new development, more people are looking back and saying, Meghan wasn't and will never be the villain after all. Because in the end, choosing peace over constant conflict isn't weakness, it's courage. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't staying in a situation that's breaking you. It's finding the strength to walk away and never look back. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to smash that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you're enjoying these conversations, consider becoming a channel member to support the channel. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I always love hearing what you have to say. Until next time, I am your host, Miles. Love you all, stay blessed, and I'll catch you in the next episode.